Picture the world in the late 15th century. The Atlantic Ocean was a wall of mystery, an endless blue expanse whispered to conceal both riches and ruin. To most Europeans, the seas beyond were treacherous and unknown, haunted by tales of sea monsters and eternal storms. Yet a handful of daring men believed it held the key to unimaginable wealth and glory. Among them stood John Cabot, a man born Giovanni Caboto in Italy, who would become one of the first Europeans since the Vikings to set foot on the shores of North America. Unlike Columbus, who sailed under the Spanish crown, Cabot placed his trust in England. His 1497 voyage, sailing out of Bristol with a small crew and a tiny ship called the Matthew, would change the destiny of nations. His landing on the North American coast, whether Newfoundland, Labrador, or Cape Breton, marked the beginning of England's claim to the New World, a claim that centuries later would blossom into vast empires. John Cabot's life is a story of vision, risk, and quiet determination. Though much of his biography remains wrapped in mystery, his courage to sail into the unknown carved his name into history. John Cabot was born around 1450 in Genoa, or possibly Gaeta, though he is often associated with Venice, the great maritime republic. His original name was Giovanni Caboto. Venice at the time was a city of traders, shipbuilders, and explorers. Young Giovanni grew up surrounded by the rhythm of commerce and the constant comings and goings of ships from the east. Like many boys of his time, he dreamed not of farming or craft work, but of the sea. He studied navigation and map-making, and by his early 20s, he was already a skilled mariner. Around 1476, Cabot became a Venetian citizen, which gave him the right to engage in long-distance trade. He began traveling the Mediterranean, trading in spices, textiles, and other goods. These voyages hardened him, teaching him not only seamanship, but also the cutthroat realities of international trade. He saw firsthand how Portugal had begun reaching Africa and how Spain was financing bold voyages into the Atlantic. The world was changing, and Giovanni Caboto wanted to be part of it. The late 1400s were dominated by one question: how could Europeans reach Asia more quickly and profitably? The Silk Road was long and dangerous, and Muslim powers controlled much of the trade. Columbus had convinced Spain to back his westward gamble, but other nations were eager to find their own routes. By the 1480s and 1490s, Cabot was restless. His trading ventures had taken him as far as Mecca, where Venetian merchants exchanged goods with the Islamic world. But he realized that true fortune lay not in repeating old routes, but in discovering new ones. In the early 1490s, he moved to Bristol, England, a bustling port city with a tradition of sending fishing vessels far into the Atlantic. Rumors circulated in Bristol of unknown islands to the west, perhaps visited by Irish monks or Norsemen centuries before. Cabot believed he could find them again, and beyond them, a shortcut to Asia. England was ruled at the time by King Henry VII, the cautious founder of the Tudor dynasty. Unlike Spain and Portugal, England had been slower to embrace Atlantic exploration, yet Cabot saw opportunity in that hesitation. If he could convince Henry to sponsor him, he might secure a monopoly on any new lands discovered. In 1496, Henry granted Cabot a royal patent, giving him and his sons the right to sail west, claim lands in the king's name, and enjoy exclusive trading rights. It was a remarkable moment, an Italian adventurer, backed by an English king, about to set off into the unknown. Cabot's first voyage from Bristol in 1496 was modest and ultimately unsuccessful. Sailing with a single ship, he encountered storms, shortages, and perhaps crew mutiny. Forced to turn back, he returned to Bristol empty-handed. But unlike many who would have given up, Cabot was undeterred. He was convinced he was close to a discovery that would rival Columbus. In May 1497, John Cabot set out again, this time in the small ship Matthew. Measuring only about 65 feet long with a crew of perhaps 18 to 20 men, it was far from the mighty fleets of Columbus. Yet what it lacked in size, it made up in daring. Sailing westward from Bristol, Cabot and his men braved the unpredictable Atlantic. After weeks at sea, on June 24, 1497, they sighted land. The exact location remains debated by historians. Some argue Newfoundland, others Cape Breton Island or Labrador. But it was undeniably North America. Cabot and his crew planted the English flag, claiming the land for Henry VII. Unlike Columbus, who encountered bustling Caribbean islands, Cabot found rugged coasts and no obvious cities. Still, he believed he had reached the edge of Asia. The return voyage to England was swift. When Cabot arrived in Bristol, he was celebrated as a hero. News spread quickly. England had found a new route to the west. King Henry VII was delighted. Cabot was rewarded with money, new clothes, and promises of greater support for future voyages. He was hailed as the Great Admiral, and his success inspired dreams of a new English empire across the seas. Bristol buzzed with excitement. Merchants imagined fleets trading with Asia directly. Fishermen spoke of vast new waters filled with cod, richer than any they had ever seen. For Cabot, it was only the beginning. In 1498, Cabot set out again, this time with a fleet of 5 ships and about 300 men. His goal was not merely to reach land, but to explore it, establish settlements, and perhaps find a passage to Asia. The details of this voyage are shrouded in mystery. Some of the ships were damaged by storms and forced to return to Ireland. Cabot himself pressed onward with the others. Did he reach the coast of Newfoundland again? Did he explore as far south as New England, or even reach the Chesapeake Bay? The records are unclear. What is certain is that after this voyage, John Cabot vanished from history. Some say he perished at sea, swallowed by storms. Others suggest he returned quietly to England and died soon after. Whatever the truth, the explorer who had opened the door to North America disappeared into the same ocean that had made him famous. Though his life ended in mystery, Cabot's achievements lived on. His 1497 voyage marked the beginning of England's claim to North America, a claim that centuries later would lead to colonies, wars, and the birth of nations. Cabot's discovery gave England a foothold in the age of exploration, standing alongside Columbus, da Gama, and Magellan. His courage inspired his son, Sebastian Cabot, who became an explorer in his own right, serving both Spain and England. Today, John Cabot is remembered as one of the great navigators of his age, a man who dared to cross the unknown and, in doing so, changed the fate of nations. Facts about John Cabot. John Cabot's real name was Giovanni Caboto, but he became known as Cabot in England. He became a Venetian citizen in 1476, the same year Columbus likely arrived in Portugal. Cabot's ship, the Matthew, was only about 65 feet long, tiny compared to modern vessels. He may have been inspired by Norse sagas about Vinland when planning his voyage. His crew for the 1497 voyage may have numbered fewer than 20 men. Cabot believed he had reached Asia, not realizing it was a new continent. His voyages inspired Bristol's fishermen to exploit the cod-rich waters of Newfoundland. His son, Sebastian Cabot, became a famous explorer and cartographer. Cabot vanished mysteriously after his 1498 voyage. His fate remains unknown. Modern replicas of the Matthew sail today as floating memorials to his courage. John Cabot's story is one of both triumph and mystery. He was not a king or a nobleman, but a restless Venetian merchant who believed in the power of the sea to change fortunes. Against the odds, he secured English support, braved the Atlantic, and became one of the first Europeans to set foot on North American shores. Though his life ended in obscurity, his discovery lit a spark that would grow into centuries of English exploration and colonization. Without Cabot, there might have been no British America, and perhaps no United States or Canada as we know them. His story reminds us that history is often shaped not by those who live in comfort, but by those who dare to risk everything on a dream. Standing on the shores of Newfoundland, or gazing out from Bristol Harbor, one can still feel the spirit of the man who opened the door to a new world, John Cabot, the Venetian who changed England's destiny.